Hello, my friends, and welcome back to another episode of the Mission29 Podcast. I've turned the camera around in the studio today to let you see the beautiful spring day outside. It makes it a little hard to work, but we're going to get through this really quick. I'm going to share some really awesome things, make some connections to help you understand my world a little bit, and I'm going to introduce you possibly to a good friend of mine, really a leader and a mentor that I trust implicitly to share with you today the 5 P's of leaving a lasting legacy. Let's get started. All right, we're going to get to the 5 P's of a lasting legacy here in just a moment, but let me connect a couple of the dots. So I want to introduce you to who you're about to hear from, Dr. Randal Langley. He's been a very good friend and, like I said, a leader and a mentor in my life since 2017. And so he is the president and CEO of Christian Life School of Theology Global, where many of you know. I also serve as the Global Relations Officer. My days are invested in interacting with students and faculty and partners all around the world. So it's a lot of fun to get to do what I do and be a part of the team. Love the legacy of CLSTG. It goes back to 1983. Dr. Langley's been the president since 2013 of the school. But today, something that I want to share with you as well, connecting the dots. See, so I am doing Mission29, and that is what I've learned is my passion project. And I've taken that term, borrowed that term from Dr. Langley and his wife, Reverend Lori Langley, because their passion project is the Langley Leadership Group. And I want to introduce you to that. I'm going to put a link to that anywhere that I can to help you find your way there. So I really encourage you to check out Langley Leadership Group. I encourage you to check out Christian Life School of Theology Global. If you have a question about either of those or Mission29, my passion project, then let me know and I'm happy to help you navigate your way through there. But I want to get into this teaching that's not going to be very long. This actually comes out of a Zoom meeting that we recently had with the credentialed leaders, those that hold a ministerial ordination and a ministerial license with Christian Life School of Theology Global. And Dr. Langley just shared an encouraging word. So we're going to get to that right now. Check this out, the 5 P's of leaving a lasting legacy. My friends, meet my friend, my mentor, my leader, Dr. Randal Langley.
I was asked to speak in as part of a series that they were doing on legacy. It's an organization that's in the process of some transition. And so they were emphasizing leaving a legacy. And I thought about that. The word apostle, where we get the Greek word is apostelos. It's really what it's from, out of the root word apostello, which literally means to send. So we're not all apostles, but we're all apostolic people because God has appointed and sent each of us, and we live on kingdom mission. And so our responsibilities may vary within the kingdom, but we're apostolic people in that sense. So my goal here is not to argue apostles, prophets, evangelists, pastors, and teachers. We do, I mean, that's a good discussion, but even then, if you look at the Ephesians 4 scripture, all 5 of those offices still have the same assignment, to equip God's people for the work of ministry. They just are going to do it differently around the unique grace gift on their life. But we're sent people, and I think that relates to this concept of leaving a legacy. The thing that we have to realize is that legacy is not what we do. Legacy is the people that we love and serve and develop and disciple and influence and impact. And legacy doesn't happen by accident. What I'm talking about is deliberate. It's intentional. And I don't know, this year I'll be 65 years old, and God's blessed me and my wife with great health, and I'm so grateful for that. So I don't feel, I guess I don't know what a 65-year-old is supposed to feel like, to be honest with you. It's just a number. It is what I am what it is, I guess. But Um, Maybe I'm thinking about it more, but I have been thinking a lot about legacy for something that goes beyond. It's something that you leave. Um, a while back, I don't know if it's a couple of years ago, Lori and I were living in Pensacola, and our kids did this thing for us called a legacy box. And they took some of these old videos. We had some old VHS tapes, and they digitized them and put them on computer, and so that we could preserve some of these VHS tapes. Right? That's back in the day when we had camcorders that would sit on our shoulder. You guys remember those? I mean, they were huge. And what do we do now? Now we like have an iPhone, and it's just crazy, the technology. But the one that they did, I'm 27 years old. So this is what, 38 years ago. And I'm preaching from Proverbs chapter 3, verses 5 and 6. Trust in the Lord with all your heart. Lean not on your own understanding, and all your ways acknowledge. And I'm really talking about, living your life on kingdom mission and vision. I'm 27 years old. I don't even know what I'm talking about. But I'm preaching now. I got dark hair. I got a little mullet down the back with back in those days, if you're really cool, you had a little rat's tail. Uh, and man, I don't know. I guess I thought I was all that in a bag of chips. And now looking back on it, it looks pretty funny. But I'm just preaching away. And so I thought, what if I could go back, what would I like to say to that young Randal Langley, that 27-year-old, about his future self, right? Um, and so let me just share these things with you here, because now that I'm in my 60s, uh, hopefully I've learned a few lessons along the way. And these are kind of just some principles and some fundamentals that pretty much guide me. And and I'll throw Lori in there too, because she and I have fleshed out a lot of these things. And I'm just going to give them to you, and you can take an outline. You can re-preach this if you want. You can use it to bless other people. But I'm just calling it the 5 P's of a lasting legacy. The 5 P's of a lasting legacy. Number 1 is the word presence. The word presence. And with this, I'm just challenging and encouraging us to make it your number 1 priority to pursue and learn to lean into the Father's presence. Lean into his presence, because everything we need is found in his presence, right? You in this idea of hearing the Father's voice. How do you hear somebody's voice best? Here in my house, I've got an upstairs office area. There's only one room in this house that's upstairs, and this is kind of like my office, and it's where I hang out when I'm not traveling. And Lori is down on the lower level, and she might be off in the kitchen. And every once in a while, I'll turn around and I'll say something like, "Hey, would you mind grabbing me this?" Or, "Hey, did you make a note of that?" Or, "Did you remember to write this down?" And she'll holler back up at me like, "I can't hear you. I'm in the kitchen and the dishwasher's running." And I'll go, "Oh, duh." And I'll get up from where I'm at, and I'll go down the stairs. And what am I doing? I'm getting in her presence so that I can hear her voice and she can hear my voice. And I know this may sound very elementary to us, but sometimes I feel like it's the most basic principle of all, that we cannot be disconnected from proximity of the Father. We need time. We just get in his presence and we hear his voice. A few years ago, Lori had a life-threatening, a very life-changing motorcycle accident. And there's a lot I could say about that. She's obviously here, and God's worked a lot of miracles in our lives, and we're just so grateful. But one of the things that came out of that was whose voice is loudest, right? Because pain has a loud voice. For example, when you're in pain, that pain is screaming at you. There's a loud voice. When the pressures of life hit hard, when people become untethered and disconnected from the loving heart of God, sometimes they have no hope, and they'll say and do all kinds of crazy things, and their voice can be very loud. But you want to make sure that the Father's voice is the loudest voice in your life. And so Lori and I just kind of you know, that phrase meant a lot to us. Whose voice is loudest? Is the Father's voice louder than the pain? Is the Father's voice louder than your circumstances? Is the Father's voice louder than the lies of the enemy when he's jumped up on your shoulder and he's trying to scream contrary things in your mind, in your soul? Psalm 16:11 is the scripture. It says, "You will show me the path of life." And then it says, "In your presence is fullness of joy, and at your right hand are pleasures forevermore." In Psalm 84, in verse 4, it says, "What pleasure fills those who live every day in your temple, enjoying you as they worship in your presence." I just love that. I know you guys know this. I'm talking to mature, seasoned believers, and I just want to exhort you. I just want to encourage you to push the reset button if you need to, or get back. Do not devalue what presence looks like, and that you hear his voice best in his presence. Your true identity, this is so important, especially for leaders, because your true identity is discovered in his presence. I know some of you have some amazing ministries, and God's given you a passion and a big vision, but your value, your identity is not defined by what you do. Your value is in who you are. And the only person who can truly speak into your heart and soul who you are is the Father. And so when our identity is discovered and rooted and grounded in his presence, then we get a true understanding and awareness of our position and what God is saying to us. And then you can move on to the next P. All right. So the first P is presence. The next P is purpose. I've been sharing this. In fact, I have like 3 different Facebook pages. One of them is a professional page, and then we have Langley Leadership Group page. But on my regular page, the caption says, "You were created on purpose for a purpose." And so one of my phrases is this: man has plans, but God has purpose. And one of my life verses has been Proverbs 19:21. It says, "There are many plans in a man's heart. Nevertheless, the Lord's counsel, that will remain." So out of God's presence then flows purpose. And then when you know your life's purpose, then you can live on purpose. One of the goals at this stage of my life is just to help people dream within their God-given design and their purpose. People can do great damage to themselves. They can even destroy themselves if they don't know their purpose. Like I've got a microphone here, or, if I were to take this microphone and start nailing a nail into the wall, I could destroy the microphone, because that's not the purpose of the microphone. So a microphone is used to amplify it. There's a specific purpose for it. In the same way, I can't take a hammer and expect it to amplify my voice. So what happens is, if you don't know your purpose, then you can destroy your life in some ways. You can certainly damage it, or you can limit your potential simply by not knowing your purpose. So make sure that you take the time to get in his presence so that you can discover your purpose. And then once you know your purpose, then you can really live on mission. And that takes me to the third P. And the third P is plans. So in his presence, you discover his purpose. And once you discover purpose, now you are ready to launch into plans. But what I see happen a lot of times is people, they're excited about God's call on their life, and then they start plans and strategies and objectives without really fully understanding their purpose. But this is the divine order, is that from his presence flows purpose, and from purpose flow plans. See, what you want to do is take the time to ensure that all your plans, your vision, your goals, your strategies are aligned with your purpose. And that simplifies a lot of things, really. You simply say no to things that distract or take you away from your purpose so that you can say yes to the things that enable you to fulfill your purpose. I shared this story when I was given this message. So a number of years ago, I really had it in my head that I needed to buy this BMW. And so I had talked Lori eventually into letting me, I kind of bullied her really, but let me get this car. So she loves me and she wanted me to finally, she said, okay, get this car. So I researched, I'm on cars.com and I'm looking all over the Southeast because it was a very special BMW, it had a special engine. And so I found one in Atlanta. But we were living in Spartanburg, so it was like 3.5 hour drive down there. So I had to talk Lori into going with me to get this car because I can't drive it back by myself. It's going to take two people. So she agrees, okay, I'll go with you. So we drive down there. I'm all excited, kind of giddy about getting this BMW. We get down there, and you know how they can take pictures of things and make it look like $1 million? And then when you get there, you're like, there's no way this is the same car that you took pictures of. I mean, it just, those pictures are like putting lipstick on a pig. They can make that pig look like a beauty queen or something. And we get down there and it had a dent on the top. I don't know, it looked like maybe a softball or a baseball hit the top. And I could just tell, I just had a bad feeling about it. And Lori could see that there was a lot of tension. And I was under pressure because I'm like, oh man, now what have I done? I made her come all the way down here with me. And now if I don't buy this car, I'm going to go back up to Spartanburg without the car. And she could see that I was under this pressure. And you know what my wife said to me? She looked at me and she said, honey, a good no is better than a bad yes. Guys, listen, if you don't get anything else out of what I'm saying tonight, you need to write that down. Because that has saved our bacon over and over and over and over for the last few years. And that's kind of like Langley family lore right now. We all know that phrase. A good no is better than a bad yes. And when she said that, it just freed me up. And I didn't buy that car. Thank goodness. It would have been a bad decision. It would have definitely been a bad yes. And I got home, and a couple weeks later, I found the car that I wanted. But I just want to share that with you because we have to I think that's one of the reasons why we have to discipline ourselves, even to read the word for ourselves. Psalm 119 says, "Thy word is a lamp to my feet." Right? What's a lamp do? That's where I'm at right now, and a light unto my path. That's where I'm going. I need to know where I'm at, and I need to see where I'm going. That's what the Word of God does, right? So when you're not on purpose, everything is off course. But when you have the right purpose, then you can develop the right plans. And when you have the right plans, then you can see the joy and the satisfaction of true success and significance. So presence leads to purpose. Purpose leads to plans. And then plans have to be combined with the fourth P, and this is the word perseverance. Here's another good one that you might want to write down. You don't drift into your best life. One thing I've learned is that you don't drift into your best life. If it's really worth anything, you've got to dig deep, and most of the time, you've got to persevere. It's just the way things go. James 1:12 says, if your faith remains strong, even while surrounded by life's difficulties, you will continue to experience the untold blessings of God. True happiness comes as you pass the test with faith and receive the victorious crown of life promised to every lover of God. And of course, we all know James 1:4, let perseverance finish its work so that you may be mature and complete and lack nothing. So perseverance keeps you moving forward, even when it seems like you're going backward. I've shared this illustration several times, but in mountain climbing, it's called the process of acclimatization. And this woman, Alan Levine, wrote a book. It was a New York Times bestseller called On the Edge, The Art of High Impact Leadership. And in that, she uses her mountain climbing experience to illustrate the idea of what she called backward progress. Now, check this out. Listen to this. Because climbing Mount Everest, for example, is not straightforward. You don't start at base camp and just go to the top of Mount Everest. The progression here is that you arrive at base camp, and then you spend a few days there getting used to the altitude. Then you climb up to what they would call Camp 1, and you spend the night at Camp 1, and then you have to come back down again to base camp. You spend a few more nights at base camp. Then you climb up to Camp 1 and spend the night. And then the next day you climb up to Camp 2, spend the night. But then you go all the way back down to base camp. And see, what's happening is the reason you have to keep coming back down to base camp is because you have to let your body get used to the altitude very, very slowly. And that's the process that they call acclimatization. So the catch here is that anytime you're above 18,000 feet, which is the camps above base camp, your body starts to deteriorate and your muscles are getting weaker. So you have to keep coming back down to a lower elevation so you can eat and sleep and rehydrate and get your strength back. So here's what's cool about this. What you have to remember is that even though you're going completely backwards, you're still making progress. So perseverance is the ability for a leader sometimes to understand that even though sometimes God is taking you backwards, in reality, if you could just scope out and look at the big picture, you're not actually going backwards. You're actually making progress, though it looks and feels like you're going backwards. All right. So you can share that with people who get discouraged and frustrated, because I don't know why we have this. For some reason, we always think that progress is about starting here and going straight up here. But that's just not the way life is. And sometimes you have to go completely backwards in order to reach your destination. So we've got to throw the P word, perseverance, in the equation, right? Think about Paul's, just his relentless tenacity. He says, I've fought the good fight. I've finished the race, right? Basically, what we're saying is that we can't quit. And look, you all have been in this game probably for a long time. You know that there are times it's going to get messy along the way. That's just the reality, my friends. And you have to have the ability to encourage yourself, to stir yourself up. You have to have the ability to recover from failure and keep going, because there's going to be some times when things don't turn out the way we thought that they were going to turn out. But don't quit. Keep on going. Lori and I have met some new friends here in the Phoenix area. They pastor a church called the Rock Church USA. And it's really cool because when you go to this church, every Sunday they say this, and they've got it memorized, the whole church family. They get up and say, "Welcome to the Rock Church, a church that cares where you're going." And then everybody shouts out in response, "Not where you've been." And I just love that, right? Because people show up to this church, they're messy. Their lives have been, they're hurt, they're wounded, they're searching, they're hungry to know Jesus, to know the love of a Father. And so for them to stand up and say, "This is a church that cares where you're going. We're not weirded out. We're not, looking at your past. We don't care we care where you're going. We don't care where you've been." So sometimes you've got to tape it. You got to ice it. You got to do whatever you got to do to get back in the game, but just don't quit. Okay. Get some counseling, get some prayer, get smothered with anointing oil, whatever it takes to encourage you and keep you moving forward. And then lastly, we've got presence, purpose, plans, perseverance. The fifth P is people. People. If God's given you a ministry of any type, I can tell you right now, it's all about people, right? Legacy is all about people. And really how you steward your relationships. You see, listen, my friends, the success of your life and the legacy that you and I are going to leave is ultimately, it's going to be measured in how we navigated our relationships with people. your spouse, your children, your family, key friends, just people in general. Um, you know, another thing in our house is the idea of connection. We've tried to make this a value almost above every value, that we are pursuing connection above all else. So there are times when, we have adult children now, we have a grandson and other prayerfully other grandchildren to follow. And there are times when you just want to say something or do something and you realize, wait a minute, is that more important than connection? If I say this, if I don't steward this relationship right, maybe I can damage connection. And if I blow up that bridge of connection, now I have no influence. Now I have no impact on their life. And so legacy is about people, and it's about how you steward your relationships. I can pretty much tell you that just about every open door that I can think of, about every season of promotion that God brought into Lori and my life and our ministry came through the bridge of relationships. Um, and how we stewarded those relationships. God moves in the kingdom through a network of family. That's why Matthew 18 is in our Bible. That's how much he cares about how we steward these relationships, right? And so when we shifted to connection, elevating that as a higher value, it really makes a significant difference. Things that you don't say, that you want to say, but you realize I need to pray that through a little bit because I don't want to lose connection. All right. Because we're talking here about relationships, and God never intended for us. God never equipped us to go it alone in life and ministry. There's no lone rangers. That's one reason why I'm excited about us being able to just add value to each other's lives and to create connection. We want you to have a safe place to unpack things that might be going on in your life and prayer needs that you have. But to leave a lasting legacy, we have to steward and strengthen the integrity that we have in our relationships because we need each other. I like Proverbs 17:17. A friend loves at all times, not just when things are going well, not just when things are, everybody's, in agreement, but we still have to love at all times. A brother is born for adversity, actually, is what Proverbs 17 says. That's when you discover the value of those friends and that connection. So I want to be this kind of man. I want to be one who stands with my friends and my relationships in times of adversity, not just when things are going well. Bob Buford wrote a book a few years ago called Finishing Well. And he actually wrote a book called Halftime, which is also a great book about a man's life up till about age 40, and then how he's pursuing success. And then that's why a lot of men around their early 40s have midlife crises and so forth, because they realize that they've been pursuing success, but they don't have that success. But really what they were after all along was not success, but it's after significance. And here's the thing. If you become significant, you'll be successful. But you can be successful at things and not be significant. So it's a powerful book. But this book, Finishing Well, is all about the end of your life. And just like the book says, finishing well. And so, I want to finish well. I want to leave this kind of legacy for, number one, for my family, and number two, for all the men and women that God has privileged me to share life with. And so I hope you'll take these things. The divine order of legacy should be presence, purpose, plans, perseverance, and people.